The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Great to have you in. Welcome to Friday. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody, and you will get our starting five shout-outs. What's the latest in the portal? We'll spend plenty of time on Emmett Johnson's departure. We were getting ready for an Average Joe sports show pod that you can catch on YouTube last night, right when the post happened on social media from Emmett Johnson. So plenty of thoughts on his entry into the portal. The name that's been catching some buzz today is, maybe a return home for a Phil Simpson on Nebraska's coaching staff. We'll talk about that and look into some Nebraska basketball as well. Huskers and Sparty tomorrow. I pray that Coach Izzo is wearing the Grinch sweater tomorrow, as he's accustomed to this December or multiple Decembers. Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 Sports in about 15 minutes. In hour two, the Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports, and the Professor Bill Doleman gets us going. Jacob Padilla pops by for some high school basketball, some college hoops thoughts. And then he is back. 'Tis the season as Clausborne returns for the Friday forecast and maybe some commentary on how the Husker season ended on the gridiron. 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. You want to get in, you're welcome to do it. You can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. And as always, find us in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter. I will not scare anyone that's watching us in the stream with a celebration dance. Just know this. Stake and a beer bet was achieved last night. Thank you, Detroit Lions. Why didn't you even want any points?
Packers gave it hell. It would have been a push, and that's no fun if I had gone with the points.
You did it for everybody. I see.
Packers had a great chance at that game. Sometimes you just have to tip your cap. That final drive by the Lions, great work. The ballsy call on 4th and inches to go for it and go secure yourself a win and not give Jordan Love the ball back. Sometimes you just got to tip your cap. Packers did enough to give their offense a chance until they didn't. And also great play by Jared Goff to kind of lose his footing and still get that ball handed off. It was almost Michigan at the goal line, circa 2021, except in NFL you have to be touchdown, so it didn't count. But Lions get the first down, puts a stake into the heart of my bet from last night with you and the stake into beer bet. But we move forward.
You've been meat shopping today.
I have been.
Yeah. You are all about fired up the smoker tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. 60-degree weather, Schmitty. Yeah, how many more of these are we going to get? Also, I got myself got myself a tri-tip, which I'm looking forward to. Going a nice medium rare on that with a chimichurri. Okay. Going to make the chimichurri for it.
Along with green sauce?
Yeah, it's with all the parsley and
that's
garlic, little pepper. Yeah, olive oil. Going to be good. And then also doing a whole smoked chicken as well. And while I was getting my chicken, I was like, that turkey price is pretty good the week after Thanksgiving. So now I also have a turkey in my freezer now.
The month leading up before, you're in an alley with four defensive linemen. You're going to get beat up.
Yeah. Now you look at the turkey price, like 75 cents a pound deal.
They're giving it away.
Yeah.
Justice, how you feeling about Nebraska and Sparty, dude?
I feel pretty confident. I looked at the Michigan State numbers earlier at lunch with my friends and feeling pretty good. You know, it's a Tom Izzo team early in the year, so you like to get them now instead of January, February. But like the chances is just, which version of Sparty are you going to get? You're going to get the Sparty that shot the cover off the ball against Minnesota, or are you going to get the other, Maui version of Sparty? It remains to be seen.
Also, the secondary question, do you get a Frankie Fiddler, quote-unquote, revenge game in his first chance against Nebraska?
Well, I mean,
you have to consider.
Does he just go off?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Does he have that extra motivation of playing the home state school? And I know it's not.
I don't
in
think
Lincoln,
there's any
but
revenge needed. I mean, I think Nebraska wanted him. It's just
that's why I said quote unquote. It's against the home state team.
Sure.
So, there's a little something extra there.
You're more likely to play well against your home state school at home at the school you're at versus going on the road and trying to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because that tends to happen when guys, air quote, come home to play. Yeah, they try and do a little too much. Where will Emmett Johnson's home be? This isn't really surprising. We'd heard a little bit of rumbling, a little bit of smoke. There are names on this roster when we're talking about 30 to 40 more guys when it's all said and done to get down to 105. And you just wonder what could have been with Emmett Johnson, guy that's a sophomore going into his junior season somewhere else. And I'll say this about Emmett. Emmett fought the good fight. Emmett got here. Emmett competed. Emmett ran hard. Emmett gave you a different look with the make you miss. And, I mean, he gave her hell every time he was on the field. The problem was it took too long to get him on the field. November was kind of his time, and he had to kind of keep grinding September, October. I really would love to see Emmett Johnson have a full year with Dana Holgorsen. Now, I'm not crazy to the fact that Dana Holgerson's probably got a running back coming in. You have Dante Dowdell that is still in that running back room. You've got Quentin Ives. You've brought in Parker. You've brought in Booth. You've got Makai Nelson. So it's here and now as we talk at 4:12 Central Time before any more portal blow-ups happen. And we'll see if there's a mad rush at 6 p.m. or over the weekend as Monday and the portals officially open. I just feel bad for Emmett in a sense, Elijah and Justice, that the guy just never seemed to be able to do enough to get an early look and get the carries. I don't know what practice looked like. I looked back to him being a guy that Ron Brown really liked and recruited in that 2021 recruiting class, the Minnesota Football Player of the Year. Good dude we talked to on signing day in 2021. So Emmett's kind of been one of our favorites, selfishly, but I just loved his style. He was a tough runner, could catch the football, but also he was really fun these last 3 games to watch, and I think he could have been something nice for Nebraska moving forward.
Yeah, and I struggle to say this without having an insider's perspective on what it looked like Monday through Friday within the football facility, but strikes he's a guy that never quite got a fair shake at Nebraska with his
one of those
time.
Guys that Dana was talking about with, all right, assistant coaches fall in love with guys and they're blinded by some of their favorites.
That is how this feels. Because
right?
How many times have you sat back as a Husker fan and been like, man, this Emmett Johnson guy, why is he not getting more carries?
When he's in,
why is he not getting more snaps? You go back to last November, and Emmett Johnson kind of becomes the bell cow for that offense, and you go, oh, wow, I think Nebraska found their guy moving forward. He had a really, really impressive month of November. Despite the fact Nebraska didn't win football games, the eye test told you that Emmett Johnson was a good running back that deserved more carries moving forward.
Complete back.
Don't forget, last December at this time, we went in the offseason thinking Emmett Johnson was going to be the guy moving forward. And what does Nebraska do? They go bring in Dowdell, who by all accounts didn't have the best spring. And Emmett Johnson did have a good spring, and he turned around to fall camp, and who's your starter? Day one against UTEP? Well, it's Dowdell. Who gets the most of the carries throughout the season? Well, it's Dowdell. And then Emmett Johnson comes back in November and has a good November, and you say, well, Nebraska found their starter moving forward. I don't know. I'm of the opinion that Nebraska probably still would have gone to the portal this offseason for the running back position. And if you're Emmett Johnson, you have to sit back and say, well, after 3 years of not getting a fair shake around here, would I be getting a fair shake next season if Nebraska goes and picks up a portal running back? And I think it's a fair question to have because, as I said, it just, from the outside looking in, has never quite felt like a guy who got a fair shake and got the playing time that he deserved based on what he put on the field on Saturdays.
Here's the other thing, right? You tell a guy to go earn it. We're going to play the best guy. We're going to play the guy who practices the best Monday through Thursday. We're going to play the guy who does well with that given opportunity. And eventually you just like, yeah, right, I've been been doing what I can, and then when I get my opportunity in the game, I've been a running back that has found and hit the holes when I've gotten my chance, and eventually that go earn it mantra just goes in one ear out the other. I at some point you can question it. At some point you just kind of got to stop and say it ain't me. Right? It's not me. And that's understandable as well. Like he's a big boy. This is big boy football. You get that you've got to fight every day for your job to get those carries. You can't take a practice or two off based on the standard that's air quote preached, okay? So you understand that they're going to go try and get a Parker. They're going to go get an Ives. They're going to go get a Booth. They're going to go get and recruit and try and find a better back. It's your job to keep the job. But at some point, you've got to be given an opportunity to run with what you've earned. And it never felt like they just kind of handed the baton to him, even though he tried to take it and do everything in his power. And it kind of goes back to Satterfield and Barthel, with Satterfield enamored with Dowdell. I mean, that was kind of his back, just based on some of the commentary about how and who doesn't like how Dowdell runs. He runs physical. His touchdown runs, busting a buff forearm, was impressive. Nebraska fans love physical running backs. There's just a little more make you miss with Emmett in his running style. And when it comes to Barthel, you just never got a clean rotation. Guys weren't in for an entire series. I get taking a guy out if he's had 5 straight touches or carries or plays. I get the substitution, but the backs were so scattered with how they went in, and then they were subbed for, and it was all personnel based. And that ain't going to be how it's under Dana. Like, he'll have some packages, I'm sure, but he's going to keep riding that horse, so to speak, fellas, till the back can't do it anymore. Like, he just wants to go make yards, score points, win football games. And he'll ride the guy who does well in practice. Now, we don't know. We saw Emmett run at a really high level the last 3 games once Dana got here. We saw a guy like Borkature and Lindenmeyer also get more usage. We saw some guys that had been gathering dust, probably through no fault of their own, under the previous offensive staff. You just wonder what it could have been with Emmett.
You do wonder what it could have been, but also at the end of the day, Emmett Johnson was still a part of a running back room where no one was able to differentiate themselves. I mean,
is that because of some inconsistency, or is that because of bias?
That's a real question to have, but I think you have multiple coaches that went up in front of the media and said, we need to find a guy that can turn a small to medium run into a big run, to make a guy miss at the second level and get going. And
Emmett's been your best home run hitting back, and I know he's not taking it to the house, but he's had some 20-yard gains. I know you want those to be 80 yards, but you'll take what you can get right now.
You'll take what you can get right now, but I am not of the opinion that Emmett Johnson is an irreplaceable player.
I agree with you. Your job's to go find a better back.
Yes.
And you can go get a better back.
Is it a loss? Yes, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I personally don't believe that Nebraska was going to go into next season with just Emmett Johnson and Dowdell as their guys. I think they were going to go pick up transfer portal guys no matter what. Go pick up guys that can be splashier on the field and go pick up chunk plays with a little more consistency. So you wish Emmett Johnson the best. I know his dad briefly tweeted last night and then later deleted a tweet that said relationships over money. What does that mean?
That read-in is what to you? Here's some money, Emmett, stay here?
That's kind of my read. Hey, Emmett, we liked here's some money. And Emmett saying, you know what, I don't like how I was treated around here.
I'm good.
I'll go find a place that values me. If that's the case, you just wish Emmett Johnson the best. And you also turn to Nebraska's coaching staff and say, go find yourself a better running back in the portal. Go find somebody that can go be your bell cow next year.
Well, and I think you found the guy that's calling plays and putting the game plan together that's going to use guys appropriately and not misuse or not use people that'll help you win football games. The other Dave is in. He is first in the starting 5. Jeff is here. Mike checks in. Arlo says, hello, Uncle Larry. Good to have you. Tuck says, what's up? Tuck says, I had a dream Dylan was ... It was a nightmare. Tuck, it was just a dream, right? Great Red Shark is commenting on, I believe this EJ stands for Emmett Johnson. Phil checks in. Not looking forward to the Skidmark Bowl. Phil, sorry, brother. Bundle up if you're going to go to the Nebraska Bowl game, it sounds like. Justin is here. Cliff in from sunny Florida. We also have Black Hills Brennan. Good to have you, Black Hills Brennan. Hope you're doing all right. Dion is in. Bruce from Spearfish. Shane checks in from Santa Cruz. Arizona Husker is here. Mr. Snitley is back in. Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Bill Belichick has his son. Carolina blue for Bill Belichick. That's a bad idea. Sorry. Coach Brandon's here. Eat Beef says, what's up? Montana Husker fan, good to have you. Crazy stuff out there about Sat and Emmett. I'm not privy to that. Really. Tim here from Idaho, QB1 Ace, checks in. We'll get to more of your comments, more of your shout-outs. Brian Christopherson going to be with us. Get his take on Phil Simpson as he departed Nebraska as an analyst to go to Florida State. May he be back? We'll get BC's thoughts on the class as well, on Emmett Johnson. Hail Varsity with you here on a Friday.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody, Brian Christopherson with us here from Husker 24/7 Sports. BC, it's been a week. Good work, man. You and Brunsey and Schaaf, thanks for the time today. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
We're all right. We were just kind of lamenting what a year, a full 12 games under Dana Holgorsen, what Emmett Johnson would have looked like, man.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that too, because it felt like something was building there. My biggest opinion is that while last night's news I know was disappointing to Husker fans, I still am pretty confident in the direction that they can take that position with Dana Holgorsen leading the offense, because I just think he's going to put guys, whoever wins those jobs, whoever is your 1-2 punch at running back, I think he will do a good job finding talent and putting them in spots where they can succeed. So I think people should still be optimistic about that, but I understand the feeling. And I think there's just in general, like if you're of a certain age, you don't even have to be of a certain age. If you're over 15 years old, it's all different than it was like even 3 years ago, this college football world we're following now. And so I think it's just kind of hard to adjust to this era where you watch a guy get better over the course of a season or during his career, and then you're like, oh, I don't get to see that play out for another year or two. That is discouraging to fans and everybody who covers it, honestly.
What's discouraging about Emmett in particular is you saw multiple times where he went out there on a Saturday and you thought, well, that's the best running back in the room.
My eyes tell me this, right?
Yeah, you saw it last November. You saw it before that. You saw it this November. And it never feels like Emmett quite got that opportunity to go show that he was the number one guy, except in limited opportunities. And I'm also of the opinion that if Emmett would have stuck around this offseason, and who knows, maybe this song is not over yet. Maybe Emmett could still come back. I don't believe that to be the case, but it still just kind of feels like a what could have been story with Emmett Johnson, because he never quite got the opportunity he thought he would, whether it be because of recruiting or because of portal acquisitions.
Yeah, there's definitely that unknown, and we're going to see it play out. Like, I mean, whatever Emmett does, if he goes somewhere else, we're going to see, were we just seeing the beginning steps of a back who, I sometimes with his shiftiness and stuff, people didn't want to say, oh, he's like Amir Abdullah, but he had some of those moves sometimes in space where it kind of reminded a little of that. I still think he has a ways to go to be that type of back, but we might have been seeing the steps that he was starting to take toward trying to be that. And we're going to see now if that plays out that way, or if we saw kind of his ceiling the last few games. and it kind of levels off. So unfortunately, as we think, it doesn't look like it'll be in a Husker uniform. I do think they have some interesting options there going forward, and I've said all along, there's nothing really that can surprise me anymore. And I mean anything with the portal. Like, I could see any name in there and it just wouldn't rock. I mean, it would rock like what you think of the direction of the program, but it wouldn't shock me in the way that we're just in such a era that you can hear a name or anything happening and you're like, yeah, I guess that could happen anymore. So it's weird. It's definitely not like how it's just so different from even when I got into this beat and stuff like that. And I'm trying to adapt to it myself.
Well, let's be honest. It's not sustainable. It's not fun for college football fans. It could be fun if you hit a home run, but what's your ability to have sustainability? We'll see. Time will tell. If you have a good year, are you Mel Tucker, or are you putting together a good run where you're a playoff contender year after year after year because you're so good with roster flips? And it'll come to a head. You'll have some sort of contractual obligation, so it's not free agency all the time, we think, or we hope anyway, but it's been madness is what it's been. You put all the legwork into the recruit, you get them in here and you try and develop, and then they can be gone just for the sake of staying out of the courtroom. So it's been a nightmare. You can find Brian Christopherson on Twitter at Husker247BC. So, BC, I do want to ask about the potential reemergence here for Nebraska with Coach Phil Simpson. I know he was an analyst for Nebraska in 2023, went down to Florida State. He is a pretty renowned high school coach in the Miami area. He's been essential, along with when Coop was here, to landing Nebraska's Florida talent. It sounds like that Simpson may be back and his duty could be on field outside linebackers.
Yeah, that would be a big addition because those who follow it close enough, understand how connected he is in the Miami area. It's why, a big reason why Florida State wanted him, even though it's like a 7.5-hour drive from there. They want to have a presence down there in South Florida. And he's just so well respected by all those coaches and the players. If you think about sort of the most promising guys on the Nebraska roster who are freshmen, like every guy from Miami has sort of been a hit so far. And even the ones we didn't see, like Larry Tarver would get talked about, like they think he's pretty good, and Willis McGahee, by the middle of the year, you kind of realize like in late October, you're like, man, he's like having one of the best years of all those guys out of that area. And so you want, obviously, to keep those guys, Jacory, of course, and Shavers, and you want them to feel comfortable. And I'm not saying it's all based off, one coach or anything, but, that would have to increase Nebraska's odds there. And it would have to help them kind of get back, I think, into that area again, like they did the last cycle, and maybe it fell off a little bit this one. So that would be a big hire, in my opinion. And when you combine him and you think about Jamar Mosey, who did a lot of great work in the KC area, like I was talking with Dawson Merritt before signing day, and he said, Coach Mosey took, in his opinion, the three best guys out of the KC area and helped them get to Nebraska. He wasn't the only one, but obviously was a factor. So that's a nice 1-2 combo if you have Simpson and Mosey, as far as sort of whether they're full-time coaches or not, they're going to be a big deal to this program if they're involved.
Do you read into the fact at all that it could be Nebraska making an on-field hire for the defense whenever they don't have a full-time defensive coordinator in place there? Is there anything to read into that?
I don't think so yet. I mean, it's just going to be really interesting how how they stack the pieces together, because obviously you can have guys who aren't technically your 10 full-time coaches who are still incredibly involved. And like Jamar Mosey wasn't technically one of the 10 coaches this last year, but he's a big deal to the program. It'll be interesting though if like Matt Rule feels like you need to reward those guys with that title, or if it matters, or if they'll start to. I mean, maybe the payments are just going to start to rise for certain analyst guys where it doesn't really matter if they're counted toward the 10 full-time guys or not. They're still making good bank. So I'm curious how that's all going to work out. But I imagine they're going to those guys will be paid a good clip, because they're going to have value to this program.
BC, I wanted to ask you real quick, what do you make of the new wide receiver coach hire, DeKel Shorts Jr.? I know he's got a good track record. He was director of player development for Houston for a bit after being a player at West Virginia under Dana Holgorsen. What kind of impact do you think he can have right away and in the future for this Husker squad?
Well, I'm a big Dana believer, and it's not just because he's a great press conference quote. I just like how he calls stuff, and that's why I'm not as like down in the dumps. I do understand the Emmett Johnson thing, but I think they're going to be all right. Like I think he'll figure some stuff out there, and they'll have good personnel and they'll excel in the scheme. But when Dana says, that's the one guy we need to add, that's pretty telling to me. And when Dana Holgorsen, 2 weeks ago, is asked about Ja'Cory Barney, and he's talking about Tank Dell, who played for him with the Houston Cougars and in the NFL is doing quite well. That's a guy that worked under Shorts or played under Shorts. So I think it's a really good hire on the surface. I actually, usually when a coach is hired, an assistant coach, a lot of times I won't even know their name, a position coach, like there's so many in college football, you'll have to like kind of do your research. I actually knew about DeKel Shorts because he was on our 30 for 30 list on 24/7 Sports of young up-and-coming coaches, and I kind of tracked that. And I also know that he had a buyout with Kentucky attached to his contract, which you don't see for every position coach. And if anybody saw the clip of Mark Stoops the other day at Kentucky talking about the loss of him, you could tell it hurt Kentucky pretty badly. Like they thought they were going to have him for another year at least, and that was why his contract was the way it was. But Nebraska paid it out and saw the value in it, and I think there's probably good reason for that.
BC, got about 2 minutes here. Do you think Nebraska will be better when it comes to the next wave of portal additions from an evaluation standpoint? Nebraska's gone portal shopping. Not every portal guy is hit. Some have been okay, but they've not truly been difference makers. Do you think it'll change?
Hard to say. I think they're definitely gonna be aggressive with it. Even Holgorsen mentioned on their show the other day, like they might bring in 20 to 30 for visits. Sounds like they'll take 10 to 15, and they should be able to compete pretty well financially with other programs. So it's just a matter of, like you're hitting at with this question, can you find those guys who have that sort of special DNA? I don't want to knock everybody that maybe didn't quite live up to what was hoped. Like sometimes these guys are decided by like 2 or 3 plays, right? Like Isaiah Nair is a good example of that. Like Nair was a guy who was productive and did some good things, and you saw his talent about why Nebraska wanted him. But and this is maybe unfair, but it's a fortunate way sports is. He's probably going to be remembered for the pass that got, dropping the pass at Iowa and the one that got ripped away at Illinois. Those are 2 big plays. So that's an example where someone will be like, oh, that one didn't work out. I mean, he was a good player in a lot of ways, but it's just that matter of finding those guys who just have that little something extra that gives you that play that puts you over the top in clutch moments. So I don't know how you determine who has a clutch gene and who doesn't through these portal visits and all that, but that's what it's often going to come down to. They'll get some guys that we're going to talk up and are going to look really good on paper, but are they going to have that just whatever it is that makes a guy thrive with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter? That's the big question.
BC, have a good weekend. Thanks for the insight today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Open phones here till 5. Bill Doleman coming up here in about 20 minutes. Jacob Padilla with us at 5:25. The return of Clausborne. So you just wonder, Elijah and Justice, if folks do go to the portal, is that ink or is it erasable pencil? And I ask that because if you're Nebraska, just for an example, you'd really probably like Emmett Johnson to stick around and say, hey, dude, it looked and worked pretty well, the Final Three, with Dana doing his thing, and we'd like you to stay. But the other thing, too, is, who is the final decision maker with guys that go into the portal when it comes to allowing guys to come back?
I will say, moving forward, if I was an administrator, a football coach, or whatever, I think you got to start having the hard and fast rule to avoid guys going to the portal to leverage your own NIL collective. You got to start having the rule. If you enter your name into the portal, you're gone. You can't come back. I think that's got to be what you don't want guys to just go ski mask and gun and get a bump. Exactly. The leverage game. I think in order to avoid that moving forward, which you're going to see it plenty in college football this year. I think he kind of saw it down at Ole Miss with that linebacker. He signs with Ole Miss on signing day, and then by that night he's off to Mississippi State. I think because he probably got a better payout from Mississippi State, in addition to probably some family pressure. I know he was kind of a legacy there. But I do wonder if that's the way you have to move going forward, of just telling every guy who enters their name in the portal, just so you know, once you enter your name into the portal, Nebraska is no longer an option for you. You're going to go somewhere else just to avoid that leveraging situation where guys say, I'll go into the portal to make them think I'm leaving, then I'll come back to the collective and say, this is my number for me to come back. Mm-hmm. Avoid that. Just say, hey, if you're in the portal, you're gone. Colin chimes in as we talk about Emmett, and we'll get to Simpson and his impact as well. So Colin says a career 500 coach that's coming back 6-6. It's not a clean slate, insinuating that all the blame for the record is on the players and none is on the atrocious coaching staff is hilarious. Well, there's a lot of ways, Colin, we can go with this. Were the offensive hires in hindsight on that side of the football pre-Dana working and scoring points in the Big Ten? A 6,000-yard staring Justice Rhody shakes his head solemnly no. 18 and 23 points a game isn't going to get it done. And your new offensive coordinator said as much, as nicely as he probably can publicly at the podium, not long after he got here. It's been a mess. It's been a mess of rotation. What you've had is some injuries in year one, and you've had inconsistency and indecision in year two, pre-Dana, with what the hell you wanted to do or wanted to be. Meanwhile, you got a five-star quarterback that if you give the kids some time, a little help with the running game, and some guys that can be consistent on the outside, you're going to win football games. You're going to score points. And you had a window to pair that with a proven top 20 defense that's now gone. At least the man who led that defense. I mean, let's just be real here. The correct answer is always somewhere between the two extremes. Yeah, in the middle. Yeah. Were there times this year? I mean, Nebraska was a catch on third down away from likely winning against Iowa, or a well-executed long snap and field goal away from probably winning against Iowa. You go back a little bit, but you look at that Indiana game. The Illinois game, I should say, where you're stick with Illinois. Sorry, you're probably it was 13-7 at one point against Indiana, but it was Colorado all over again. But to go back to Illinois, you're a 2-yard overthrow in the end zone from probably winning that football game. You go to Ohio State, if your defense can get off the field after you take the lead and get the ball back to the offense, you can probably go win that football game. Like, the healthy or the correct response to, was it the coaching staff's fault or was it the players' fault this year? Probably both. It's both. You got to go make plays, but you got to put guys in position to go win football games, and that wasn't always done. I say there were times the right personnel. There were times this year where you put your guys in position to go win football games. They didn't execute. There were other times I look squarely at the Indiana game, and I say I don't think you put your team in a position to go win that football game. You could probably say the same about UCLA as well. I don't think the defensive game plan for UCLA was what it needed to be. Well, and that's my armchair analysis from a guy who's never coordinated defense before in my life. But you look at both of those performances and you go, I don't think this Husker football team was put in a position to win in those football games by the coaching staff. So the correct response is probably both.
Here's what I believe, though. I mean, you just, for whatever reason, something was off, something was up with UCLA because Bieniemy, and that kind of blew me away. And I know they were. Now they needed to be this year, but he got popped yesterday. He looked like $1 million. That offense against Nebraska, they couldn't. There's no way that they couldn't convert a third down that Saturday against Nebraska. And to be fair, Nebraska had chances against Illinois, against UCLA, against USC, against Iowa. Who am I missing? Ohio State. Those were all 3 minutes or less to go win the ball game on offense. And you didn't get any of them done. But that's not on your freshman quarterback because clearly he showed the ability 3 times leading up to the Illinois game, your first few games of the season. He put some killer 2-minute drives together to end the half.
Mm-hmm. But this entire conversation is why we're seeing
6-6.
It's why you're 6-6, and it's why we're seeing everything we've seen this week, from changes in the coaching staff, transfer portal departures, the wish list that we're talking about for the transfer portal. It's because were the players good enough to lead you to the heights Nebraska wants to be at? No, probably not. Did the coaching staff assist them and put them in positions to win? No, not always. So you're going to upgrade the coaching staff, and you're going to, at least the goal would be from the coaching staff,
and
go upgrade the players.
You're going to upgrade the locker room. Mm-hmm. Got to do it. 489-1240 to get in. Our friends with the Big Red Junkies are in. Scott has checked in. But, it's okay to remain optimistic with Shorts, with Dana. We'll see if there's any other movement with this Simpson hire, it looks like.
I do think, I said this with Brian, I do think it's interesting if you're making an on-field hire for the defense without a full-time coordinator in place. And I understand that not all coordinators have the same level of autonomy.
Is your knee-jerk, we got to get one of our dudes from Florida back to keep the Florida kids here?
Could be.
I mean, it's not that hard. It's that simple.
I think Shavers and McGahee are 2 guys that you think are going to be cornerstones of your defense for years to come.
They're really talented players.
Not to mention the fact you're bringing in a really, really potential high-level pass rusher in Dawson Merritt, and you want to get the right coach in place for a guy like that. Make sure he has the specialty coaching he needs.
You need to. I mean, for years, and I think of Tony Samuel, Nebraska made it a priority to have an outside linebacker / rush end coach on that spot because it's such a game changer for you. Now, give me in-state kids for sure when it comes to recruiting, but give me all the Florida kids you can get that you evaluate because they're big, they're fast, they're strong, they're tough. They compete, dude. They are competing fall and spring on the gridiron, and it's not just about the athleticism down in Florida, but it's a mentality. And Florida kids are really, really good ball players, and they're tough ball players. We'll wind down hour 1. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
All right, we're going to spend a little bit of time here on Elijah's college football extravaganza tomorrow, as the smoker will be lit. What are you going with for drinks? I'm thinking about inviting myself over. That's why I'm just asking.
I haven't really planned on drinks. I know my roommates came back from Wisconsin last week, so we do have some spotted cows in the fridge.
Okay, good call.
Yeah, everyone loves a good spotted cow. Smooth. It's just a smooth beer.
Did they bring any Yingling?
And is Yingling sold up there?
Yeah, it's not sold here.
I think it's more of a down south thing.
Well, so here's you're thinking about the great Elijah Smokeout. We're talking tri-tip and chicken, not not a Snoop tribute. And Iowa Russ is going devil on my shoulder here. Let's go to Indy. He wants to go to the Big Ten championship game again.
Why wouldn't you go hit the golf course tomorrow?
We're going Sunday.
It's better. It's even better weather tomorrow.
I know.
You're probably only going to have one weekend left like this over the next 4 months.
So I got to go golf tomorrow and Sunday is what you're telling me.
If I was you, that's what I'd be doing. I considered scrapping the plans for smoking up foods. I can't do that. I'm going to try to find a tea time Sunday.
Can you politely ask your roommates to just throw it on and keep an eye out? We'll go play 18 tomorrow?
It's a quick smoke, both of them.
Okay.
That tri-tip won't be on there for more than an hour and a half.
Russ, and I showed you the flights because we did a year ago. We did the show. I did the show from, I think it was it Denver? Yeah. I did. I did the Saturday morning edition from Denver on my tablet.
I remember because I was at a local pizza establishment on a Friday night watching. I think
it's probably the Big 12 title. It's probably the Big 12 or Pac-12.
It's Pac-12. That's what it was last year. It was the Pac-12 championship game, and I get a call from Schmidt. Harebrained scheme. I think I'm getting up early and going to Indy tomorrow, and I go to watch that beatdown.
Well, it was more the experience.
We all knew the beatdown was coming.
No, we knew. It's 26-0. Michigan just destroyed Iowa. Iowa Russ sprung for second-row seats. I got the hotel. We flew out. We made it. We went to St. Elmo's. It was great. And then somehow, some way, we made it back Sunday morning, 45 minutes till the flight's supposed to leave. The alarm is not heard by either of us because we were up late because of whiskey. The idea to go and say, hey, let's go watch Iowa and Michigan in the Big Ten title game was born out of whiskey as well. But, hey, this would be a hell of a game. It's supposed to be a great game tomorrow in Indy. Penn State to Oregon. And I think I can get in for $40.
The real question is are you going to be watching the Big Ten title game because Oregon-Penn State's a great game, or do you watch ACC because of the implications?
Both.
Well, if you're at the game, I don't think you can watch both.
I have my phone. I could have my phone on with the other one.
Good luck getting that to connect and work.
Yeah, it's true. It's been a black hole for years and years, even when it's just media day at Lucas Oil. So what's your take here, Justice? Do I go? Do we make it 2 years in a row? Do we fly out at 7 tomorrow morning, check in on the weekend edition from Denver, get to Indy, get a steak, get some shrimp cocktail?
I think you should consult the old ball and chain about that one. That's what I think.
She'll say, get the hell out of my house.
She'll fund it. She'll say, leave and don't come back. The old ball and chain. I'll let her know.
He said it, not you.
Yeah, I didn't say it this time.
He's the pride of Fairbury, an average Joe. Bill Doleman, the professor.
I had a 6 ACT in 1967. One time I got an A and my grandma beat me for cheating.
Now with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. It's Hour 2, Friday edition. It's Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody. Weekend edition tomorrow at 7:45-ish. And catch the latest Average Joe Sports Show podcast on YouTube with Bill Doleman, the pride of Fairbury, with us. Billy D, how we doing? You're still stuck in the office? Are you scanning the portal?
I'm educating.
I
am a local lecturer who is educating, but I'm getting in here and I'm looking at your chat thing going on. What have you guys been talking about today? Because you got some Star Wars debate and feud going on with Moonbot saying all of Star Wars is overrated, and the some other guys can't be serious. And
yeah, I got
to side with Moonbot.
There's been some discussion about Emmett Johnson early in the show in the stream. Then it
just went off the rails to Star Wars.
Then it has shifted to let's eat a handful of gummies and talk and debate Star Wars.
Are we going to go to the planetarium and listen to Pink Floyd later?
Some of us pulled that off on Friday nights in high school when we weren't dating somebody. It was okay. But you had to do the late Floyd show, Bill.
Yeah. It was either that or go down to the Cooper and watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show. But,
I'm good.
I will add, Star Wars.
Did you do the planetarium?
No, I don't think so.
Never?
No.
All right.
Don't think so. I will say though, Star Wars was great until these new movies and spin-offs ruined it. Don't base your opinion of Star Wars off the new stuff because that's all garbage.
No, the one with where you get to see more Vader Obi-Wan battles shortly after he becomes Vader's cool. Rogue One's awesome. Is it 4, 5, 6, or 3, 4, and 5? Whatever came out, 77, 78. It goes Empire Strikes Back, and then it is Rogue One. Those are the two top Star Wars flicks.
Oh.
I fell asleep during Return of the Jedi, and that's the last I've seen of Star Wars, and that was about 1986.
Yeah, I was 5 with Return of the Jedi, so I liked it.
Empire Strikes Back, though, has Carrie Fisher and Jabba's lair.
Yeah.
Slave outfit.
No. That's Return of the Jedi.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's what
you're right. You're right. You're right. No, that's a good part, though.
No, the slave outfit's awesome.
All right, moving on.
In fact, we may purchase one for Christmas. Kidding. Not for me.
Junior.
Junior. That's wrong. Bill, how about them Bears?
Actually, the more relevant question right now, how about them Yankees? Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I don't want to talk bowl game yet. Let's talk Emmett Johnson. What's your theory as to the why here, other than because it's allowed?
I don't know. I'm disappointed because I've championed him really from the time he got on campus. I thought he's been Nebraska's running back. I've never understood why they didn't utilize him more. Big Gabe Ervin fan too, but I understand why his career got sidetracked, derailed, and he deserves an opportunity to go play someplace, maybe closer to home in Georgia, like at Georgia Southern or something. But Emmett Johnson, I thought we finally saw what I believe. Not that it matters what I believe, but his last 3 games, his elusiveness, the way he hits the hole, and the way he became much more of a every down back's probably not the right way to put it, but man, he earned the carries that he got, and when he got the ball, he performed. And yeah, he did drop one late in the Iowa game, but he got it back. I don't think that has anything to do with it, but it could be just like this is what Dana Holgorsen has been honest with him about how he might be used in the offense, and maybe he's just not the kind of back that he wants to see. But I thought from, all indications and people I talked to that he and actually his family had found a home in Lincoln, and this is where he wanted to be. And obviously things have changed in the last – I probably had that conversation earlier this week. And so when he went in the portal, that was the biggest surprise for me. James Williams was not a surprise. Jamari Butler, really not so much, even though he said he was coming back. Malachi Coleman was not a shock at all to me. But Emmett Johnson, I think, based on what we saw at the end of the regular season, was one that, was really kind of disappointing because I just think he's such a high-class guy in so many ways and could be a really good back here at Nebraska. So I'm sorry to see him go, but he'll be yesterday's news when, somebody hits the portal tonight and it officially opens up on Monday.
Bill, what do you make of the seeming disconnect between Husker fans and Husker coaches regarding Emmett Johnson? Because I think Husker fans for at least 12 months now, dating back to last November, I've kind of seen Emmett Johnson as the guy who should be getting the lion's share of the carries. I think that even continued as this year went on, and Dowdell didn't always look at his best. What do you make of that disconnect between what Husker fans think of Emmett Johnson and what Husker coaches think of Emmett Johnson? We can't specifically say what Husker coaches think of Emmett Johnson, but I think you can figure it out based on his usage.
I don't know what the answer is to that, other than the big change in the whole equation is Dana Holgorsen, and I can't believe that Dana Holgorsen would meet Emmett Johnson and not think, wow, this is a really high quality individual. He's a high character guy, and he performed well when called upon in the last 3 games, but maybe just didn't seem like this is going to be the right fit. Both parties decided to have a new start. And so I just think whatever's going on with Nebraska's offense, I just chalk it up to what is Dana Holgorsen's vision for it in terms of who he wants and the kind of back that he wants, whatever. I don't think he really is looking, I got to have a back that's 6'2", 215 and 225 and runs like Eric Dickerson. Well, there's a throwback. But
It's Portal era. I mean, it's Portal money.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You're not wrong.
When is the real story going to come out on that now? Statute of limitations on SMU 1984 is over. But I look, I don't know if there's a disconnect or not. The only thing I can point to is that Dana Holgorsen is now in charge of the whole thing, and this is what his vision is. And maybe Emmett just didn't see a lot more opportunity in it. Maybe it is 12 to 15 carries a game, and he wants to be a 15 to 22 carry a game guy.
Bill,
right?
want to get your take on potential addition to the staff. That's Phil Simpson. Could be on the practice field Monday. He was an analyst. He's a guy that's coached at a high level in Miami, high school ranks, went to Florida State. Sounds like he's coming back from Florida State, pretty responsible, along with Coach Coop for getting Barney and Shavers and Amari Sanders and Tarver and Willis McGahee here. It's important to keep connections, don't you think, down in Florida? And if you get this guy back to coach rush end / defensive end / outside linebackers, good for Nebraska. I know they had coaches dedicated to it for a long, long time, and they put a premium on that spot, and it worked out well. Keep getting me Florida talent and keep getting me guys who can bring Florida talent.
Yeah, I read where he might be the rush edge coach. I'm like, man, we are getting so specific now because you can have unlimited you can have a limited number of players, but unlimited coaches apparently. And if they found a place for him to be an on-field coach, good on him. But the opportunity to maintain that relationship with the state of Florida is a premium for this football program. And I thought it potentially would be a big loss when he did leave and went back there. But to bring him back, that might be a pretty shrewd move for Nebraska. And they want to maintain the fertile recruiting ties that they have with that state, especially when you take a look at the recruiting class does not have a real Big Ten footprint to it. So if you're not going to get people from the neighborhood outside the 500-mile radius, you might as well go as far down south as you possibly can. And if that guy's going to continue to bring him in maybe 3 or 4 a year, then that's money well spent no matter where you put him on the field.
Bill, let's go from some football to hoops. Big opportunity tomorrow, Nebraska, Michigan State. Another resume builder. You've got St. Mary's that didn't go Nebraska's way. They whacked Creighton, and now it is Sparty time. And a lot of intrigue here because Nebraska seems to be on the verge here of, well, kind of putting a special season together.
I watched the Michigan State-Minnesota snooze fest the other night, and I'm not quite sure that Minnesota knows that the basketball season started. They just seemed disinterested at home. And I guess I shouldn't, be too negative to that because that's the kind of performance Nebraska football gave the first half of the UCLA game. Just bored and disinterested and didn't really want to be there. I wasn't enamored with Michigan State, to be honest with you. That may be, that typical Tom Izzo team that loses 6 games before the first of the year. And then the next thing you know, they're talking about them being a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. And then they win a game and end up in the Sweet 16. That might be where they're headed. I think if you're going to get Michigan State now before they do kind of kick it into conference gear, and boy, Izzo knows how to coach in conference play, now's the time to do it. I think not only this, but Nebraska's got the date with Indiana coming up. Mm-hmm. I mean, two really solid opportunities for Fred Hoiberg's team that came into the season with zero identity to have an identity. And now that we know that Nebraska is better than Kansas by default with Creighton beating Kansas, so Nebraska's better. We know that it's a pretty good team, but so this would be a great week for Nebraska basketball to beat Michigan State and Indiana and get off to a 2-0 start in conference play.
Bill, is this offseason that we're...
Let me say this real quick. If you don't beat Michigan State, I hate to say this, Indiana's kind of a must-win
you're
early
not wrong.
Season game.
Yeah.
Okay? Go ahead.
I want to ask the question to combine the topics of football and basketball. I brought this up before the Iowa game. I want to get your thoughts. Is the offseason we're seeing now for Husker basketball similar to the offseason we saw after year 2 for Hoiberg, where Abdel Massi hits the road? You bring in Coach Linzer. You kind of change up what you want to be as a basketball team. Go after some different types of guys in the portal, clear some dead weight. Is it a similar type offseason based on what we've seen so far for the Husker football team?
Wow, that's pretty esoteric and deep there, Elijah.
Thank you.
We might have to go to the planetarium to fully understand
rap about it, man.
All the subtleties of that. I suppose you're talking about the identity of playing in the Big Ten, right? I mean, that's kind of what they did with Linzer, and that's a good point. Nebraska's got to find establish an identity football-wise in the Big Ten that's not air raid, but is not, the old days of 3 yards, cloud of dust, and hope you pick up 4 on one of them to get a first down. I think Oregon is transforming the Big Ten faster than anybody would have ever anticipated. It is not. They've got to acclimate to the Big Ten. No, maybe Dan Lanning is playing out the words of Scott Frost that they're going to have to adjust to us. And maybe with Dana Holgerson and his air raid principles, maybe Nebraska's got to be a little bit more in line with that identity than, the old Michigan and Ohio State days of the past. It's a worthwhile discussion.
Well, I have not checked the planetarium schedule tonight. I don't know if it's Pearl Jam. I don't know if it is The Doors. I don't know if they're going with
Welcome
Pink
to
Floyd.
The Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, well, this is probably almost 30 years ago, but they did do. The one night was The Wall on a Friday. The other was Dark Side on Saturday.
I'll say hot take. The Wall is
they
the
did
better
the Grateful
album.
Dead. The Wall?
The Wall's the better
No,
album.
no.
Yeah.
No.
There's 3 really good songs on Dark Side of the Moon.
The whole thing with Dark Side's cool.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't go to listen to Pink Floyd, but okay.
Bill was dating a gal that was into Pink Floyd, so he liked Pink Floyd. Fair?
Yeah. Well,
we get it handled?
Yeah, you're pretty good on that.
Yeah. Well, Justice was calling the lovely wife, the bunny, the old ball and chain, asking or telling me I need to get permission from her to make another Big Ten championship run like I did last year with Iowa Russ. And clearly, this, Doleman. My wife hates me. She'd send me, a one way.
Well, we've been talking about it that your wife likes my friend more than she probably likes either one of us.
Well, I think the bunny likes you. I think I'm the problem. If we go out for drinks, you and your friend and Aaron all get along. I just got to kind of elbow in to get a spot at the table. It works out all right.
I'm being called a crazy person in the stream chat for saying Dark Side of the Moon is not as good as The Wall. There's a reason I said hot take before I said it. I knew it was going to be unpopular.
You can have
for my own personal tastes.
You can have your preference.
I like Time. I like Money. There's some good songs in Dark Side of the Moon. As a whole, I don't think it's for me, and I think it's slightly overrated.
I love Brain Damage. Oh, that's mine.
Yeah, that was called out.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Justice has never heard of Pink Floyd or the Planetarium.
Have you seen? What's the name? It's like I've been practicing like Pink Floyd here. I can't spit out what I'm trying to say here.
Does the Planetarium still exist?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I know I got to go there 2 semesters in a row because one semester didn't go well.
Elijah's takes are horrible, always having ice cold takes.
Wow. Billy D, we will pour a whiskey here, all right?
Deal.
All right, there he is. Appreciate Bill Doleman with us here on Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Jacob Padilla with Hail Varsity Hurrdat Sports at Jacob Padilla _ to talk some round ball both round balls, really. A little basketball, a little volleyball. Jacob, how's the week been? Thanks for a few minutes.
Yeah, it's good. High school basketball officially started last night, so we are all the way into basketball season now, even though volleyball is really ramping up here for the postseason.
It is. We'll get some high school hoops thoughts. Just so you know, Junior Carson Schmidt was at the East-Southwest game, but Junior was not in the student section.
Okay. I was going to ask, did we get a full report on how that played out? But I'm not shocked like that with the setup there for the student section when you're kind of asking for trouble when you put them right next to each other. But in that gym, there aren't a lot of options.
No. Now, to be fair, had Junior thrown a full 20-ounce bottle based on his strike zone, it wouldn't have hit anybody.
Oh, man. Throwing him under the bus.
He knows I love him. But
well, did he exit the gym to go throw down afterwards?
No, he was probably watching from a distance. We had a talk in junior high about his involvement with police, and it's one thing he's listened to.
Oh.
Yeah.
Off the air story?
No, I think I've railed on it before. It's when I was on vacation in Arizona during the NCAA tournament like 3 years ago.
Okay.
I think I've screamed about this before. Anywho, we have Jacob with us.
Hi, guys.
Yeah. So who do you like this year? As we'll stick with prep hoops, and as far as the Class A landscape, you kind of talk to me here. Some of the favorites going in. We'll have plenty of coverage here in Lincoln of some of the Lincoln teams, but when you look at Metro, Lincoln, Kearney, just the state really, Jacob, who do you like this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be more wide open in Class A than it's been for quite a while this year. Millard North preseason number one, and understandably with what they bring back, what they add, they're just a really well-balanced team, and they've got one of the best players in Derek Rollins at the center of that. So they're up there, but then after that, you can kind of throw any number of teams into that mix. I saw Tapio South last night. They handled a really good team from Iowa, Western Christian, 2A reigning champ. They've won a ton of titles over there, and they brought back their two best players, and Tapio South handled them. And it was largely because of Bryson Ball, who had 27 in the first half, finished with 36 for the game, 6-11 from three, had a couple of dunks, including one on a kid's head. It was a really impressive performance. He signed with South Dakota State, really good get for them. Kind of a 6'4" shooter. He's a lot of fun to watch for just fans of high school basketball. So with him, Tapio South is going to be in the mix. Kearney will be in the mix, like if you're looking outside of the Omaha Lincoln Metro, just because of Jacob Weber, who is the next big-time prospect. Creighton, I know, is going to be – they're coming to play at Elkhorn South tonight, and I know Creighton will have somebody there. Nebraska's offered as well. Iowa's offered, and then schools around the country as well. So he's probably the biggest time. Like, if you're just looking in terms of next-level prospects, Jacob Weber is by far the best in the state. If any fans are looking for just a show, if Kearney comes to town, I think they're worth going to watch with Weber, and then Ben Johnson, another one of the kind of just talented seniors all around. He's the Division II commit. So those are some of them. Prep struggled last night, won in overtime. They'll probably be in the mix. And then Westside as well. In A, they'll be in the mix too. They're just a really deep and well-rounded team. So that's probably the top of Class A. I think Lincoln North Star probably has the most upside among the Lincoln team, just with the young kids they've got that got experience last year, now a year older, and I think they'll be starting 3 sophomores. So I think that's probably the team. Then Southeast will probably be in the mix, but kind of the usual suspects down there. So that's kind of, I would say, the kind of the landscape of Class A.
Jacob, over the past couple years, it's been Death, Taxes, and Bellevue West taking on Millard North in the Class A state title game at the end of the year. Is there a chance that changes this year? I know Bellevue West doesn't have the preseason kind of hype that they traditionally do over the past couple seasons. Do you see some different suspects making it into that game this year?
Yeah, well, if Bellevue West makes it, then credit to Steve Klein, because they believe they're going to be starting 3 sophomores who haven't really played varsity ball outside of sitting on the end of the bench. They've got Robbie Garcia back, who's one of the best seniors in the state, and he's going to get a lot of shots up this year based on what I've seen of them in like summer and fall league. But he does not have really any experience around him. So it's a good program. Like the young kids are going to be good players. It's just a matter of kind of how quickly it'll click for them. So yeah, like if Bellevue West makes it back there, then credit to Klein and that staff. I don't think anybody's favoring them to get back in their mix. Like I said, any of those teams I mentioned, maybe Omaha Westview, they've got one of the best athletes in the state, and Taven Zephyr Murphy, and Amir Martin transferred there from Omaha Bryan, who is capable of putting up some big offensive numbers. That's a team that could kind of be a surprise. Millard South, I think, has a solid team. They're going to make a big leap from last year. So, I don't know right now. Maybe you go Millard North, West Side. If like I had to pick a final, those are the two teams that I think probably are the safest picks to make the final. But with some of the players on the other teams that I mentioned, I could see any combination of teams ending up in the final in Class A.
Jacob, going to switch to college basketball. Big one for Nebraska and Fred tomorrow as they're at Michigan State. Huskers off to a great start, riding momentum, shooting up the net rankings with that Creighton performance over KU. What do you look at with this basketball team for the Big Red? I know Michigan State defends, they're physical, they're talented. Pretty big-time test, but also another resume opportunity for Nebraska basketball tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know why it seems like they end up with Michigan State in a lot of these early Big Ten games. Like Indiana and Michigan State, it feels like, are the ones that they played multiple times early on. I don't know why that seems to be working out, but yeah, I think it's time to. They got that Creighton game under the belt, obviously. They learned from the St. Mary's game, so now you got to kind of take what you learn now and take it into these conference games and see if they've figured out kind of the rotation and the guys that they can rely on and how this team needs to play together. Michigan State's a good team. They've got some good athletes. I don't think they've quite figured it out either. Like they're still kind of searching for themselves and what the best version of this roster looks like. I know they tinkered with the lineup a little bit, and I know Frankie Fidler hasn't quite gotten going for them yet. We'll see if that changes with him facing Nebraska, see if he can kind of catch fire there and be a factor for them. But yeah, it's a chance to go out, and we've seen Bryce Williams, kind of what he's been doing recently. He's looking like the guy that they need to lead this team. And when he plays well and you get the guys around him kind of filling their job, you get a little bit out of those post guys. You get Raleigh making some nice plays. And then Connor Seaton coming alive. Like that's a big key. Like Seaton is a guy that they can count on to provide floor spacing and to attract defenses. They're running more plays for him, getting him even more involved. Then that'll end up opening a floor for those other guys, because that's kind of what we talked about early on with the way the starting lineup was with Bearcat, with the big lineup there, with Bryce basically at the 2 as your best shooter. I think you got Connor out there. It changes the landscape of the court and how defenses have to attack Nebraska. So his emergence, I think, is going to be big. Like they need him to really be a significant factor here as they head into Big Ten play. And the recent 2 games that he put together are certainly a good sign of if that be the case.
It's Jacob Padilla with us here. And Jacob, let's shift gears and talk some volleyball before we get you out. The Huskers have Florida A&M tonight. And it's tough for me to talk about this game, Jacob, because the Huskers in the first round of the NCAA tournament, it feels like a foregone conclusion. What does Nebraska need to get done tonight to avoid the major upset and to send Husker fans home happy, and I guess to fulfill my expectations for this one?
Yeah, if you want to go, the cliche answer is just play Nebraska volleyball. Like you said, Florida A&M, they've had a great season. They swept through their conference. They're slightly ahead of Nebraska in terms of opponent hitting percentage. They're 6th in the country. Nebraska's 8th. So it's a good defensive team. But as John Cook put it, like there's one thing to be a great defensive team in the SWAC when you're playing those teams every night. It's another to be a great defensive team in the Big Ten with the hitters they're hitting or they're facing on a nightly basis. So yeah, Nebraska it's basically just going out and taking care of business, making good decisions, making sure you take advantage of your opportunities, and just don't let them hang around. Like you said, Nebraska it feels like a foregone conclusion every single year. That's the benefit of being a number one seed. You get to face the last few teams into the tournament. So Fort A&M is a good team for their level, but their level is several notches below where Nebraska's at.
Jacob, we'll say goodbye to this, and always love catching up with you. Jacob Padilla with us. So on Nebraska's side of the bracket, when we talk volleyball, where are the threats at? Who could ruin the party, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I mean, this first weekend, the other teams in Lincoln, you've got South Dakota State, who was an at-large of Summit. They had a great season before losing in a 5-setter to South Dakota in the conference final and still made it. They have one Lincoln native on their roster in middle blocker. Man, her name's escaping right now. Annalie, I forget her last name, but Lincoln East product that plays for them. So that's the one Nebraska native coming here for this pod. So it's kind of a cool experience for her. And then Miami is the 8th seed here on the other side in that first game. And they've got a pair of dynamic pins that put up some huge numbers. So if it ends up being Miami, Nebraska's going to face, I got to lock in on them. If they do that, I think they'll be fine. And then you're looking at Arizona State and Wisconsin as the other top seeds in that quadrant of the bracket. We obviously know we've seen Nebraska versus Wisconsin twice. It's gone Nebraska's way both times, and they'll get them back in Lincoln if they are to face each other. And they've also faced Arizona State too, and beat them in Lincoln. So the most likely challenges are teams that Nebraska's already seen this season. Hard to beat a team 3 times, but at the same time, it's not like those were 2 grinded out down to the wire matches. Nebraska kind of controlled both those in impressive fashion, so we know they're capable of it. So that's kind of the interesting dynamic here. Is the most likely Sweet 16 Elite 8 matchups are the ones we've already seen before. So that'll we'll have to see kind of if Wisconsin is able to get by Arizona State, who had a phenomenal season. Outside of that one night in Lincoln, nobody else has really touched them for much of the year. So that'll be a fun one to see kind of who emerges from that side of the quadrant.
Jacob, have a good weekend. We'll chat again. Thanks for the time.
Sounds good. Talk to you guys later.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, winding down a Friday weekend edition coming up at 7:45-ish tomorrow morning. Hail Varsity YouTube channel where you catch that. Myself, Mark Cranack, Elijah Herbel. And without further ado, let us say happy holidays as Clausborne is back with us here for the Friday forecast.
Man, I suppose we're getting close to another naughty or nice list from Claus. It's a couple weeks away.
We'll have to do that. Is it this week or is it next week or the week after? We'll have to check Claus's schedule. Claus, how we doing? Thanks for the time.
Well, I'm doing okay, Christopher. I would shake your hand, but we don't do that around here.
I thought so. Claus, do you have a thought or two when it comes to pregame prayer in Iowa? Do you have a prayer? I mean, how are we doing with the last week's worth of events?
Well, first of all, I know people were upset that Nebraska's captains did not shake the hands of the Iowa captains, but I can't say I blame them. There was a study done by the University of Science that says all people who live in Iowa have trace amounts of pig manure on their hands at all times, as that is the state's top industry. So I wouldn't want to play a football game or shake hands with them with that knowledge. And as far as the pregame prayer goes, fellas, I think it's an important thing. And in fact, I'd like to lead us now in a pre-segment prayer, if you don't mind.
All right, I will bow my head, Claus.
Dear Lord and baby Jesus, laying in your $400 Bluetooth-connected bassinet that you'll only use for 6 months, but your mother insisted that you have. For legal purposes, I must now say that this is not something I have experienced. We come to you this day to ask that you cure Iowa of their bad corn and bad quarterbacks and devotion to handshakes and last-second field goals. And Lord, baby Jesus, as you continue to grow and freak your parents out about the cost of sending you to daycare, again, something I have not experienced legally, we ask that you remove the smell of hog manure from all of the air in Iowa, and we seek your help in bringing more joy to the state so that they don't think listening to wrestling on the radio is fun. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen, Claus.
Beautiful.
Well played.
Beautiful.
Well, now that we all feel better, let's get into the forecast and place some bets.
Joseph asked in the stream, what did I just walk in on?
Claus was saying a prayer. There was no... his 50-yard line was not walled off or armed off, and away we go. Friday night football, fellas. It is UNLV. It is Boise. It is Vegas. From the Mountain West, who is going to the playoff. -4.5 Boise. UNLV's fun. They're explosive. Somewhere Ron Meyer is smiling. Too much Boise, too much run game. The Boise State Broncos get it handled 35-28, win and cover for Boise.
I've got UNLV in this one, straight up, Schmitty. Money line opportunity here for the run-in Rebs. I think that offense is too explosive. I think Boise State's offense can suffer in the second half if they're playing from behind. Ashton Genty's going to get his, absolutely. I think UNLV pulls the upset here, and they get a 34-28 victory over Boise State tonight.
Justice?
Yeah. Rest in peace to Ron Meyer, dearly remembered for stapling $100 bills to high schools in the 1980s, but I think it's a whole lot of Boise State. Ashton Genty cements the Heisman campaign. Give me the Broncos 35-21.
Claus, where you going? UNLV or Boise State?
Well, I really like Boise State, and as Justice said, Ashton Genty has a legitimate claim to the Heisman, and I don't know if you guys follow the news, but with all due respect to Travis Hunter, this is not the week for powerful people in downtown New York to deny anyone a legitimate claim. So I'm going to take Boise State behind a big running day behind Ashton Genty.
Oh, my God.
Boise State 35 and UNLV 24.
That was too soon. Wow. Claus. It's off the top rope with a piano, not a steel chair. All right, moving on. Iowa State, Arizona State. Sun Devils -1.5. Cyclones trying to win a title for the first time since 1912. Give me Iowa State tomorrow. And give me Iowa State. Their defense wins out. Arizona State's hot, playing well. Can't, in the right mind, because of 1996 pick Arizona State. So, going to go with Iowa State 24-21. What do you say, Elijah?
I'm going to follow Coach Barnett on this one and take Arizona State. He likes their offense. I like their offense. I think they win this football game 28-24.
What do you say, Justice?
Great season that Iowa State's having, but, in honor of recently departed Nebraska quarterback Jeff Sims, I'm going to take Arizona State 28-24 in this one.
Well, he might get to play. What do you say, Claus?
Well, after watching the election and how it was handled there, I've had a hard time picking teams from Arizona in terms of how they'll do in what game. So I expect at the end of the game, Iowa State will have 27, and it could be a week or more before we know how many points Arizona State actually has.
Wow.
So is that a cover?
That's a cover, but we just don't know exactly how many points. It could take weeks and many lawsuits.
That's funny. Let's move on and talk Big Ten.
SEC first.
SEC first, all right. We'll do Georgia. We'll do Texas. Bevo -2.5. You know what? I think Georgia gets even. And even louder that, hey, Bevo can't be in Georgia, let alone the Mercedes-Benz Dome. But I like Georgia. Texas is playing great ball, but I think Georgia just has something up their sleeve. Give me the Dogs 24-17 over Texas.
whenever Georgia is playing at their level, I think they're the best team in the country. We just haven't seen that level very much this season. We saw it against Texas the first time around. I think there's going to be too much of a revenge factor for Texas in this football game. Give me the Longhorns to win this one. Final score, let's say 31-24, a higher scoring SEC championship.
Justice?
I can't in my right mind pick Texas being an Oklahoma boy, and I think Georgia has recently issued a ban on plastic water bottles, so with that I'll take the Bulldogs 35-28.
Claus, about 30 seconds here. What do you got? You got Georgia, you have Texas.
Well, this past week, or really 2 weeks, all we've heard from the SEC is all kinds of whining about how their 3-loss team should be in because they think their conference is tougher than a Lincoln Riley brisket. But every time they do that, they make fun of the Big 12 and the ACC. Well, by God, every time the Big 12 team joins the conference, they dang near win the thing. So give me Texas 35 and Georgia 28. Hook 'em horns. God, I feel dirty for saying that. I'll take a shower during the break.
Claus, hang tight. We will get the Big Ten championship game and the ACC prediction with the Friday forecast. And wind down to Friday. Like and subscribe, Hail Varsity YouTube. And find us Hail Varsity Radio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. More of the forecast on the way with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here, Friday forecast continues. Clausborne as we get the Big Ten pick and the ACC pick. Claus, how was the shower?
It was fantastic, although still feel slightly dirty for what I said right before the break. I'm going to need a lot of mouthwash and a plunger on my face, Ace Ventura style.
Penn State, Oregon. We'll leave the speaking of plunger transition out of this. -3.5. Ducks. Does Big Game James get it done? I say no. 35-24, Oregon.
Big Game James.
Franklin.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's a James Worthy tribute, but another guy named James.
Who his record?
Who's James Worthy?
No. I know James Worthy. What is James Franklin's record in big games?
Well, he has one win. They got him an extension.
One win. Give me the Ducks.
Yeah,
He's got one win. Give me the Ducks.
Exactly. And I said Oregon. Said Oregon. We're on the same page. Cover or no?
Ducks 34, Penn State 24. Winning cover for the Ducks.
All right. So I say 11. You say 12. Justice?
I never thought I'd pick 10, a duck over a Nittany Lion in a fight, but here I am. I'm going to take Oregon, the newcomers, 34-31.
So the Penn State cover. Well, no, it's 2.5.
It's 3.5. I'm seeing 3.5.
Are you now? Okay. Claus, what say you?
Well, I told you I just stepped out of the shower, and the first thing you do is ask me about the Penn State game. You're just taunting the FCC at this point, aren't you?
It was next up on the list. It's a Big Ten title game. It's not my fault Ohio State couldn't take care of business and rematch.
All right, well, here we go. I suppose, much like a Penn State official, when given the opportunity to do the right thing, I will choose to duck Oregon 31 and Penn State 17.
Oh, God.
That's pretty good.
That joke's not.
SMU, Clemson, -2.5. Mustangs. Somewhere, Craig James, Eric Dickerson, and the little...
Allegedly.
Yeah, they're putting their money down on the Pony XS. I think Dabo's got a middle finger or two for him. Give me Clemson, 27. Give me SMU, 24. Outright for Dabo. What do you say, Elijah?
I think SMU's the better team. I'm with you. I can't, for some reason, picture SMU winning this football game over Clemson because of Dabo Swinney, because of that Clemson brand. Is it biased? Probably. Give me Clemson outright as well. I'll take them to win this football game. 31-28.
What do you got?
It's God's name, image, and likeness versus the old SWC. Sure, we're cheating at a SMU. I think the Ponies have a couple extra dollars up their sleeve for the officials. Give me SMU 34-31.
Even in ACC country. Okay. What do you say, Claus? Give us a exclamation point here, Clemson or SMU?
Well, speaking of SMU, I hear this week that in our search for a new defensive coordinator, young Coach Matthew has possibly contacted SMU's defensive coordinator, Scott Simons, about the opening job. But I talked to him, and he said that he is actually going to take a page out of Elijah's favorite president, Donald J. Trump's book, and just hire the people that are going to make the media the maddest. So welcome back, new Nebraska defensive coordinator, Bo Pelini. Hooray!
Clemson or SMU?
Scott Simons will not be distracted by his new Nebraska job. It's time to pony up SMU 27 and Clemson 24.
Claus, you behave.
Okay.